learn from what the Bible is talking about in their faith. I love thinking about the Bible this way. I love thinking about stories. How many times do you think the people that walked through the Red Sea, how many times they told their kids, their grandkids? Can you imagine sitting around the kitchen table being like, man, we walked right through. It was amazing. And that's why as adults and as Christians today, tell your kids, tell your grandkids, tell the people in stores the stories about what God is doing in your life. It is so important. When people hear stories and testimonies, it means so much. Actually, Revelation says they will know him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And I always think that a testimony is so strong. Next part of that verse says, lay aside every weight. Let us throw off everything that hinders and sin that clings. When the writer says throw off that weight, I don't think that he's talking about, not everything that we do or the weight is a sin. Because he uses two different things there. He says the weight and the sin. For instance, is eating bad? No, but too much eating is. Or eating the wrong things is bad. Is working bad? No, we have to work. I like that. He's like, I'm going to answer that question right now. Working's bad. It can be, though, if you work too much. Correct? I know personally, I'll share a sin with you in my life. I work too much. I put too much out instead of my family. Instead of my wife. There's times when I'm out, I do lawn care. I'm out all day long in the heat. I come home, take a shower, take a 10-minute speed nap, and then I go out and I coach volleyball. And then I'm here, and then I'm there. In itself, work is not bad. But the things that hinder us, we need to throw those off so that we can run this race without the weight of that. But then there is the sin in our lives. Those are the things that tangle us up, that put ropes around our legs, that tangle us and keep us from moving. I don't know about you, but I know I call them familiar sins. It's those ones that just always seem to keep coming into our life. You wake up one morning, you say, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to let this happen, or I'm not going to be prideful. And the first thing you do, you're prideful. I'm not going to argue with my wife. Where's breakfast? First thing we do, it's a familiar sin. Those are the things that tangle us up and keep us from running a good race. Here's another one that I've been seeing a lot of lately, and I'm really bad at it. If I'm doing this, what am I doing? Social media. Yeah, you see kids, they can't look up from their phone long enough. There's adults now. We just can't look up from our phones long enough. We think that next reel or that next, whatever they call them, TikTok reel, shorts, whatever. The next one's going to be fun. The next one's going to be funnier. The next one's going to bring something into my life that really means something. The next thing you know, 4 hours later, right? It happens. It really does. I'm embarrassed. Every Sunday morning before I get to church, my phone goes off and says, this is your screen time for the week. And I'm like, here, don't let anybody see that, because that is really bad. Did you know, jockeys, the horse races, jockeys? How big are those guys? Are they big guys? Little bitty guys, right? Why? So they can get on that horse and not put a lot of weight, not put a lot of burden on that horse. Did you know that jockeys, right before they race, they throw up? That amazed me when I heard that. I was like, what? They already weigh like 50 pounds, and they want to throw up just so they don't weigh 50.1 pounds? That just blew my mind. I was like, what in the world? So back in school, I was one of my favorite things in school was track. I loved running track. I loved running races. I loved being fast, and I loved competing. Every week we would compete against each other to see who would run in the upcoming meet. And one time, one of my friends, we get down, we're getting ready, and one of the girls was going to do the starting gun. Well, everybody was, taking off their sweats and taking off their backpack. We're getting rid of all the extra weight. Well, my friend Jeff Sylvie forgot to put his shorts on, and as he pulls his sweats off, there he is in his tighty whities, and I'm like, this is going to be funny. And so I said to the girl, don't tell him, just let him run, man. Jeff never made it to a meet because he wasn't very fast, but I'll never forget Jeff for that. But in our lives, there's things in our lives that hold us back from serving God, from serving our church, from serving Jesus. And this verse is saying, put that aside. Put that aside. Put it off. Anybody know who Usain Bolt is? Fastest man in the world. He's from Jamaica. I mean, he is super fast. I think he still holds a couple records, 100 and 200. I have never seen Usain Bolt ever go to the starting line with a backpack on, just in case he needs a little glass of water in that 100-meter dash. Never. He's out there in barely anything, and he's ready to go. He has nothing holding him back. Just get rid of the baggage. It weighs us down, and it entangles us. The writer uses the illustration of a race, and I love this because, like I said, when I was in school, I loved to race. I loved running fast. I wasn't real good at the endurance races, so I was ready. If I could see the finish line, I'm good. But if the finish line didn't come up for 4 laps, forget it. I didn't want to do it. Or cross country, no way. No, it just wasn't for me. There's a couple other verses in the Bible in 1 Corinthians 9:24. We'll run through these real quick. You don't have to turn there, but if you want to write them down, if you're a note taker. Paul compares Christians to athletes. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you obtain it. In Philippians 3:13-14. Keep moving forward. Forget what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead. I press on toward the goal. I don't know about you. I'm this kind of person. I think about my past a lot. Man, I made that mistake yesterday. Oh, I made that mistake. And I have this bill to pay, and I said this stupid thing to my family, and I keep looking back. But this verse is saying, look forward. You won't ever see a sprinter look back. The only time he looks back is when he's almost to the finish line. He looks back to laugh at everybody else that he's beaten. 2 Timothy 4:7-8. Finish the race. Near the end of Paul's life, he says, I have fought the good fight. I've finished the course. I have kept the faith. The goal isn't just to start a race. It's to finish. And for you that are here tonight, I know that maybe it was a sprint to get here tonight. Get everything ready. Get your clothes on. Get your kids fed. Blah, blah, blah. I know Grace, her house is, I love watching their house. It's like she has a system. It's like, we got to do this, got to do that. And now we're going to walk up to the church. You're here. It's a sprint here. But it's not just about coming to church 1 time or 2 times or 3 times. It's about being here faithfully. It's about ministering faithfully. It's about loving Jesus faithfully. Galatians 5:7. Don't let someone stop your race. You were running well, the verse says. Who hindered you from obeying truth? 1 Corinthians 9:26. Don't run aimlessly. This is one of my favorite. Therefore, I run in such a way as not without aim. He had a purpose. A purpose. If you ever see me running, there's probably now, back whenever I was a kid, I loved running everywhere. I just would run everywhere. Living on a farm, I'd run through the fields. Now, if you see me running, there's probably a good chance, there's a 50% chance that whatever's chasing me, I can get away from, okay? If there's like a 25% chance, forget it. Just let them get me, all right? But if you see me running now, there's a 50% chance that I'm going to get away. And this is where I was so glad that Sawyer brought me up today to see his daddy's new office. So I don't have to rip on him too bad. I was going to rip all over people who have treadmills, spiritual treadmills. You're just on a treadmill going somewhere. And I walk into Jackson's office, and what is in his office? A treadmill. So I can't tell all the jokes I was going to tell about spiritual treadmills tonight. But no, actually, I'm pretty proud of Jackson because he has his computer up there, which I know he does his sermons on, and he's getting his exercise in while he's doing his sermons, and I just think that's a pretty cool thing. But I got on a treadmill one time, and I was like, where am I going? You guys ever think about that? Or you see people, they're jogging, and it's just like, I know they're doing it for exercise, and I should do more jogging, but sometimes make sure you have a purpose. I'm going to jog to the store to pick up some water and jog back home. Or, again, don't take me wrong. I do not say jogging is bad. So this message tonight is about endurance. I have such a wonderful story, and it's kind of a personal story that I can tell you guys. I messaged this young lady this morning. I played volleyball with her and her mom. She actually was kind of one of those little kids that grew up, and she got older, and then her and her mom and her sisters would all play volleyball with us. They became friends with us. This young lady, so think about, what were you doing November 7th, 2013? You guys think about that? Probably nobody knows what's going This young lady, it was 12 years, 9 months, and 12 days ago. She started running a mile every day. And she has run a mile every day since then. That's pretty impressive. That is super impressive. I asked her one time, I was like, when you were pregnant, you ran? Yep. When you had the babies and they were little bitty? She goes, here's what I did. I'd put them in the window, or my husband would be home, but when her husband wasn't home and she had the 3 boys, she'd put her kids like in the window in a little bassinet, and the boys would sit there, and she'd run around the block as fast as she could, and she'd run by the thing or whatever. And I thought, man, that's a little scary. But she's done it for 12 years. You talk about endurance. That is unbelievable endurance. So in this first verse, lay down the weight, untangle yourself from the sin, and start running. It's going to be a long race. Hebrews 12:2, looking to Jesus, or fixing our eyes on Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. The Christian runner doesn't merely look forward. You got to know where you're going. Here's an example of fixing your eyes on Jesus. One of my favorite stories in the Bible. Matthew 14:28. Jesus is walking on the water. I always found this story interesting. They had just seen Jesus hours a day before, and then they saw him walking on the water, and they didn't know who it was. I'm like, hello? You just seen the guy. And Peter says, well, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. And Jesus, I think, with just such an awesome attitude, says, come. What did Peter do? Stepped out of the boat, and he walked on water. Until what? Until he took his eyes off. Until he stopped fixing his eyes on Jesus. And then what happened? He started to sink. And then he called out to God. And immediately, I love that word in the Bible. Anytime you see it, immediately, it is just such a rich thing to say. Immediately, Jesus took care of him and took him out of the water. I have seen picture after picture after picture after picture of this Peter. But what is he always doing? He's always sinking, right? He's always reaching up out of the water, blah, blah, blah. But did you know Peter holds the world record for the longest walking on water by a human being? And you know why? He fixed his eyes on Jesus. You can do amazing things if you fix your eyes on Jesus. And I just thought that story is all about fixing your eyes on Jesus. The race becomes possible of where our eyes are fixed. I'm going to skip through that. Like I said earlier, this is an endurance race, not a dash. We start this race the day we are born, and it is over when we take our last breath. We can't always see the finish line, but we know what it looks like. And if we fix our eyes on Jesus, he will show us what it looks like. Now, for some of us, maybe like me, maybe I am old enough now where maybe I am starting to see the finish line, but there's some young ones like little Silas there that, just starting this race of life. And I know he is going to be taught to fix his eyes on Jesus. And it is so exciting to me to know that he will hear the stories about camp, and he'll hear the stories about Samoa, when Grace went to Samoa with me, and he will hear these stories about Jesus, and he will learn to trust in Jesus and fix his eyes on Jesus. But even as we are, wherever you are in life, sometimes it's best to just take a day, take a moment, and just say, okay, I'm going through something in life. Life has really got me down. But you know what? Today is a new day, and I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep running the race. I'm going to endure. The word founder, the Greek word here actually means the one who goes first. So he's the founder and the finisher of our faith. So Jesus went first. He ran the course first. He knows the road. He knows the suffering. He knows the cross. And he knows what the finish line looks like. The word perfecter, he finishes. So Jesus is both, the one who starts the journey and the one who brings it to completion. So this next part is the part, I think it was maybe even like 2 years ago, I heard this verse. Sometimes, have you guys ever heard a verse, but then you hear it later on and it just means so much more to you. I believe the Bible is living. It's sharper than a two-edged sword. But when I heard this, it blew my mind. For the joy that was set before him, Christ endured the cross. You guys ever see that movie Despicable Me and the little minions that go, what? That's what I thought about. I was like, are you kidding? What? How can you have joy when you know that you're getting ready to go to a cross and be beaten and die a cruel, horrible death? How can you do that? There's one other person that did that whole what thing. It was my daughter, Grace. Wait a minute, let me make sure. Yes. I told her there was no Santa Claus and we were driving. She goes, what? I'll never forget that. But the joy set before him, he endured the cross. Man, I meditated and thought on that verse and thought on that little part of that verse for days upon end. I love when God shows me something different in a verse, and I love meditating on it. The joy. How can you have joy? That'd be like me saying, hey, tomorrow I get to go to the electric chair. That sounds fun. No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound fun at all. Why? Because he knew that wasn't the finish line. Jesus knows what the finish line looks like, and that's not it. Our suffering is not the finish line. Heaven is the finish line. Jesus is the finish line, right? Being faithful. We will go through suffering, but that is not the finish line. Keep going, press on, press through. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Don't let tough times hold you back. Those are the weights that we need to throw off. Shed those weights. Jesus knew that there was a resurrection coming. Could you imagine knowing, hey, I know I have to endure this, but I know I'm going to be resurrected. I know that I'm going to sit at the right hand of my Father. And we know that too. By reading the Word, we know that we have a time that when we pass, and we know Christ, and we put on Christ in baptism, we too can go into heaven and be with God. The reconciliation was coming. Endure. So the thing I wrote about endure, because it says, fix your eye, or the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. You want to know what it means to endure? Look to the one who endured. Look to Jesus. Despising the shame. But Jesus considered the joy beyond the cross greater than the shame of the cross. The cross wasn't his defeat, it was his path to victory. Without the cross, there would be no resurrection. And I think the devil that day thought, we got him. And Jesus said, oh, this is just the beginning. This is where it gets good. This is where I get to be resurrected 3 days from now. Defeat death. O death, where is thou sting? So, I love this illustration, and I was going to have Jackson do it, but I'm joking, I'm not going to. How many of you guys here, this is one of those answering things, how many of you guys here have ever stepped on a Lego barefooted? Anybody? Does it feel good? No. Okay. So my youth, the class back at Twin City, I had like a little illustration. I said, okay, I'm going to pour out 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Legos here. And I'm going to have mouse traps set all right here. And up at the front up here, I'm going to stick a quarter. How many of you guys would take off your shoes and run across those Legos to get to that quarter? And all of them, except for one kid, of course. You always have that one teenager, I'll do it. Yeah. No, you wouldn't. That's a quarter. But then I raised it to $1. Of course, the girls were like, we're not going to run across Legos, baby. That's dumb. Yeah, I wouldn't do it for $1 either. That'd just be silly. But then I said $1 million. If I put $1 million there, the kids were like, I'll get there first. I will take off my shoes. I'll run across hot coals to get to that $1 million. For me, this race that we're in, called life, this race that we're in, we're going to go through suffering. We're going to go through suffering. We're going to go through stepping on Legos barefooted. We're going to have times in our life that we lose a loved one. We're going to have times in our lives where we can't pay a bill. We're going to have times in our lives where our teenagers are teenagers. Right? We're going to have time in our lives when kids throw up on us. We're going to have times in our lives when we don't get along with our wife or our kids or our teacher, something. But guess what? That's not the end of the race. That's just some of the pain we have to go through to get to the finish line. Number 3, verse 3. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. I love this. Consider him. Just those 2 words, consider him. Who's him? Jesus. Consider him. Your suffering versus his suffering. Your opposition versus his opposition. Your exhaustion versus his endurance. Your race versus his cross. Have you ever considered him and what Jesus went through? I had an uncle who used to say, if Jesus rose from the dead, you guys know it? No? You can get out of bed. If I missed church because I was out late on a Saturday or whatever, my uncle, if Jesus rose from the dead, you can get out of bed. That was his thing. And it meant something to me. And I was like, yeah, I guess if Jesus went through all that. So I'd come to church and I'd sleep on the pew. I wasn't a very good teenager, I'm just telling you. The writer also knows something else about runners. Sometimes the greatest enemy to a runner isn't failure, it's fatigue. I was always a sprinter, but my coach asked me one time, he goes, can you run the mile? We have a race coming up and I want you to run the mile. Well, if any of you guys know, the mile is a lot longer than a 100-yard dash. 100-yard dash, you run as hard and as fast as you can the whole time. I found that out that you do not do that in the mile. At least I was not supposed to. What do? You pace yourself, you get behind somebody, you run. So this is something that's really, really, really been on my heart. It's something that I feel so blessed to be here with you guys tonight to share with, because it helps me to practice what I preach. Have any of you guys ever heard the word, you may have heard it in even this summer series, koinonia? Anybody ever heard the word koinonia? It's the Greek word in the New Testament, the word that means fellowship, communion, participation, sharing, or partnership. In Christian theology, it often refers to the deep spiritual fellowship believers have with God and with one another. In Acts 2, 30, 41, 42, what happened after they all baptized? They sold their possessions. They met daily. They were there for each other, right? And I love one of the words, I can't quote the whole thing, but it says awe. There was awe. These people stuck together. They had true koinonia. Sometimes at church, we come here and we occupy a space together. I love the illustration that I always give my minister, Pat. I said, Pat, I get tired of sitting in a pew staring at the back of someone's head. For instance, when you were getting ready to lead the music, everybody was talking. There's some nights I'd be like, you know what? This is better than anything that could happen. This is better than any speaker. For people to be communing, to be sharing, to be talking with each other, to be sharing their ups and their downs. That's koinonia. Not just simply sharing space, but actually getting to know each other, getting to love each other, to knowing who's going through something, knowing who has a pile of laundry at their house that maybe could use a hand with the laundry, that knows that their child might need a ride to school because you have all this stuff on your plate. You know what? I can give you a ride. There are people that I know in Twin City, there's a little family of about 5 little children. All they need is a ride to church. And we can't find anybody, including myself, to go give them a ride. To me, it hurts. And I know it. We all have our excuses. But you know what? One night a week, one day a week, someone can pick those kids up. And that's koinonia. You know, so often I rush to church and, let's see here. I'll go there. I don't know if your church doors are like my church doors, but I could be in the car fighting with my wife, arguing with, you guys have met little, well, she's not little anymore, Big Kelly from Samoa. Little girl we kind of adopted from Samoa. Her and I, we get into arguments every once in a while. She's a teenage girl, and it's like, oh, come on, you know, please. I could be fighting with them. I could be worried about my finances, but the second I walk through those church doors, what happens? Sister Mary Martha, how you doing? Da-da-da. Everything's fixed, right? It is. It's just like this wonderful force field. Once you hit those doors, everything's better. Right? I guarantee you, people that walk through those doors, people that are sitting here, are struggling with something. But sometimes all we do is stare at the back of their heads because we just want to share the space because we're supposed to be at church. This is what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be here. And you're right, we are. But what are we doing while we're here? Are we serving? Are we koinonia? Are we getting to know each other? I know my life, and I don't think I'm a whole lot different than people, but man, every day I struggle with something. But because I was told by my grandfather and my mother to fix my eyes on Jesus, my days go much better. The way I get through things, I love to sing. So I'll just make up a song, or I call them my truck songs. I can't memorize very much, but there's a few songs I can memorize like one verse, and I just sing that one verse over and over and over. And it's just a wonderful thing. So if you haven't seen the movie, I'm going to tell you about this movie, and then I'll be pretty much almost done. Freedom, Sound of Hope. It's about this little town in Texas, where Jackson's from. I guess Texas is just more spiritual than us, called Possum Trot. This little church decided that they were going to start adopting kids from the government, I guess you'd say, from kids that just didn't have a home, that they were kids that just needed adopting. So this preacher and his wife went and they said, we want the worst one. And this little girl had serious problems, but they adopted her. And then the preacher talked about it. And then other people in the church started adopting kids. And adopting them more, and adopting more, and adopting more, and adopting more, to the point where they actually went to the lady at the, I guess it's like a DFS. You guys have DFS down here, Division of Family Services, where you have kids that need homes. They said, we don't have any more to give out. You guys have found homes for all of them. But then something happened. It's hard. It is not easy to adopt a kid that has issues, that has family issues, that has maybe drug issues. So the families started having problems. And they thought about giving these kids back. But you know what the church did? They started helping each other, like I think Acts did. Somebody might go over to somebody's house and say, hey, let me do the laundry for you today. I've got some little bit of time off. And because of that, because they started helping each other and actually being part of each other's lives, this thing was so successful and they made a movie out of it. I thought that was just amazing. Before I even heard about this movie, I was working with CASA. It's a thing up in Jefferson County. And the lady told me there's 750 kids that need homes in Jefferson County, the county where I'm from. And I thought to myself, there's probably over 750 churches. If each church, and I wouldn't say adopt, of course, I would say go for it, adopt them. But even if the church just said, we're going to make sure this kid has Christmas and has school supplies and has this and has that and has this, we're going to, as a church, take one kid. Could you imagine what that would do to the community? Number one, I believe that the community would see that church and see Christians and say, they will know that we are Christians by the love that we have for each other. I think people would start seeing Jesus in a different light. Okay, verse 3, consider. Does it say consider your circumstances? No, it says consider him. The Christian race isn't ultimately about a place. It's about a person. His name is Jesus, and if we fix our eyes on him, we can endure. We can go through anything. We can run any race. We can go through any pitfall. And the very last thing, and I promise this is it, I have to use Sawyer in my message. The other day, Jackson was teaching Sawyer how to golf, and he's already a prodigy, if you guys have ever seen this kid golf. But Jackson said, hit the golf ball to the door. And Sawyer was like this. Sawyer's dad said, no, you got to line up. You got to turn your body, and you got to see the door, and you got to line up, fix your eyes on the goal. I want to encourage you guys, fall in love with Jesus more tomorrow than you were today. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Man, life can be it can just be happy. Have you guys ever seen somebody and you just know that person's a Christian? That person knows Jesus. I had a friend in high school who was not a very good person. He loved to fight, he loved to drink, he loved to do all those bad things. I saw him like 2 or 3 years after school, and I was like, there's something different about that guy. And I went up to him and I asked him, I said, what happened to you? Man, I'm a Christian now. I was baptized. I was like, I could tell. People can tell when you're a Christian. So anyway, thank you guys so much. Hope I didn't go over. Hope nobody fell out of a window and died. Jackson, I hope I didn't get you in trouble. Elders, if I said anything, please don't use it against Jackson. But man, just Jesus is wonderful. Love on him and endure the race. Thank you guys.